question. And I have a QR code up there. My QR codes, I like to use the QR codes. I tested them last night. They weren't working. So they may or may not work, but you're welcome to try and get the QR code. It'll take you to a little Google form survey. And I love collecting data. So have you ever turned away a student before or just after embarking upon music lessons? And if so, why? I don't think we really have time to discuss the why right now. But just by the raise of hands, has anyone turned in a student either just before or just after starting? All right, great. How about this? After a significant number of music lessons, have you ever turned away a student after a significant number? You've worked with them for long term. Yes, raise your hand if you've done that. All right, I can't think of an instance where I've done that, but yes. Okay, all right, and then finally, how do you prep for your first learning encounter with a student? So we'll just I'll do a raise a hand survey. So today's objective is we're going to talk about what should happen in that first hour that you spend with this person. And whether it is through an interview, or do you do a first lesson. You don't have to do a first free lesson. I've heard of some people doing that. But just this first encounter, how is this first impression made? So anyways, by the raise of hand, how many of you do an interview before you get started? Okay, how many of you do registration? Maybe through your website or something like that? Okay, how about a first lesson? And that's where you figure things out together. Okay, all right, and then how many of you, maybe this would be if you work for a larger organization, like when I worked for the Youth Conservatory up at Utah State. You're just handed the student, you're given a profile, here you go, show up at 3:30. Yeah? So that sort of thing. I still have dreams about that, by the way. Like I have dreams where I was handed these students, but I forgot about them and I just never showed up. So that is the dream I have. All right, okay, so speaking of worst case scenarios, so when we're first working with a student, oftentimes it can feel a little bit like we're trying to find a key that fits in a door, that opens a door, and sometimes we got this really big keychain, and we're just trying key after key, right? And then the student's just standing there going, okay, teach me, work with me, I want to go somewhere with you. So anyways, so some possible worst case scenarios that I have experienced myself. All right, so wasted time searching for the right level of music or the learning style. I can think of moments where I was a student and this happened, and it just felt like we were never clicked, and it just never, and sometimes the student quits before the key is found, which can be hard because you get attached to them, right? And you're like, no, we're gonna find it, I can get you through the door. Maybe never clicking with the student or the parents of the student, right? The relationship kind of suffers. Or this was me for a good long time in the beginning, just going in blind every lesson. Play for me, let's just see what comes of this, But I had no real direction on where I was going. And sometimes student retention can be low. Sometimes students will quit quickly, and it's hard to keep your students to really stay with you for the long term. And that can be affected by many, many different elements. How about repeatedly running into an obstacle to a student's progress? So you're like, they should be able to play this. Why are they not being able to play this? What's the reason? And usually our go-to is they're not practicing, right? But sometimes there's other reasons. There's a blind spot somewhere. And then my personal experience, the one that stands out to me was I was working at the Utah State Youth Conservatory, and I was given a student. I worked with her for probably 2 years, I think. Good relationship, good rapport. The parents were really sweet to me. They actually helped me out when I had car trouble, I remember. And then suddenly, shortly after that car trouble thing, actually, I got a phone call from the dad saying, what have you done for our daughter? We see no progress. And it just broke my heart, and they just quit right there. And so, anyways, yeah, so that was my experience. Broke my heart, taught me a lot. So worst case scenarios, maybe you can come up with other worst case scenarios. These are the ones I came up with. So back to the best case scenario. So we did the pair share, and this was your handout. Everyone got their handout now? Yeah, you good? Okay, so that was the first page right there. Yeah. Okay, so now we talked about these different things, and you have additional things on your list, right? So we talked about life skills, being a mentor, consistency, the expectations, relationships that come from playing in an ensemble. All that that wonderful stuff. So the question that we need to ask ourselves is, how do we get to that standard quickly as teachers? How do we get there fast? Because a lot of what we're talking about takes time, right? But how do we get to that point where this is clicking, this is working well? So how do we get to that point quickly? How can lessons carry that positive association for our students, right? So you can probably think of, all of us have been students, we can probably think of that particular teacher that just wowed us and it just stayed with us. So we want to be that, right? Okay, so consider this. When we go to a doctor's office, like for the first time and subsequent times, what do? They check your weight, they check your height, they check, well, they did this with my son. I have a little 4-year-old, so they're constantly measuring his height, blood pressure, pulse, temperature, medical history. They're looking up all this stuff. If they didn't do that, what could potentially happen with our visits to the doctor's office? Yeah. What? Say that one more time. Misdiagnosis, right? Absolutely. And it doesn't feel good being the patient in that situation, right? So yeah, I just recently had a sad experience with my dog, taking him to the doctor. So another aspect that we could compare this to is like dating. All right. Before the ultimate commitment, you're trying to find out, are your goals, are your values, are they aligned? So you are getting to know this person. This is a relationship. And is this the right type of, do you know the right type of chemistry between you, right? So yeah, I've certainly been in lessons where I have been extremely uncomfortable with the teacher. And there was no way that was gonna last for me. So we're finding out all these things. So in the first encounter, we need to cover 4 main aspects. We need to do administrative information, so that's important, that's all your business documents. We need to do assessment and placements. You need to figure out where they are, what the next steps are. You need to have a human connection, and we gotta try and shoot for that immediately. And then finally, there's a marketing aspect. If you are, whether you work for another organization or you are freelancing as a private teacher like I am, you are still marketing yourself. You have to be building your career. So all of these elements need to be in that first hour. That's what an important hour that is. So why is it important? You're poised to help and meet the needs of more of your students from the get-go, right? Lessons are more effective, they're more impactful for that very first moment. Student retention is higher. I had a wonderful, glorious 3 years where I never lost a student. It was awesome. But it's not realistic, obviously, students move on, but it was marvelous. Fewer resources spent on onboarding protocol. When we meet these students, when we try to acquire them, it takes resources, it takes our time, it takes our money, it takes all those things. So obviously, if we have a high turnover rate, we're going to be spending a lot of time replacing the turnover rate, so that takes away from our resources. Your studio reputation improves. If you can acquire higher retention, then your reputation, your as a music teacher is going to go up there, and they're going to tell all their friends and family about it, right? You can also justify charging a higher rate or a raise if you work for someone, because you are more impactful. So sometimes we are scared to ask people for money for what we do. What we do is actually pretty dang awesome, but it's scary to ask for money because we're just lowly music teachers. But you can actually justify charging a higher rate. And then it lays an important foundation that is one of the most important things you can do with the student. When you lay that foundation, you can build much easier on that foundation. And then after laying the foundation, it guides to bring a higher standard to your teaching. You are motivated to reach that building. You have a clear blueprint for it, and you're able to reach that so much better. So yeah, and as a result, you're going to be then refining your curriculum and getting it much more effective. Okay, so this is all within 1 hour. Keeping track of my time, everybody. Okay, so all within 1 hour. Now, to be honest with you, I have 0 to 5 stages, right? Stage 0 is not that hour, and stage 5 is not that hour. And yep, that's on your handout, by the way. So it's really stages 1 through 4. That's your hour. 0 is what happens before that hour, what you do. And then 5 is what you do after that hour, okay? But those 4 things need to be happening in that first hour. Or, you know what, I've heard of people doing this in 15 minutes. It's harder. I've tried it. of all, I can't get myself to shut up in 15 minutes. That's impossible for me. So, but yes, anywhere from however long you spend with this first encounter, what is that about? So here's the prep work. All right, so to make the limited first encounter be impactful and efficient, okay, maybe you have a correspondence with this student, and this is great to get some baseline information. How old are they? What is the experience? How did you hear about me? That's the marketing part. You need to know what drew them to you. So that's important. And then also consider what can be automated. So since we only have an hour to really leave a big impression on these people, if you can get stuff automated, maybe you do a website registration, maybe they're automatically handed some stuff. You have like this email goodie package that you send people out with or whatever, just something that takes care of a lot of it. Don't expect them to read it, by the way. They will not. But if you already have it sent out, then you've at least checked off that box. But if they do have like a registration thing, obviously they'll do that. Sometimes I have my computer open when they come, and I just have them register right there. And it's in my system. So now this little chart over here, it's included in your handout. This is what I started doing a few years back. Create a matrix of skills and overall levels for quick placement. Now, the figures inside of those boxes are arbitrary. Not to me, but to you guys, they're arbitrary. You figure out what program you're following, and you line it up the way that you think would match according to level. So I sent you like an example page, but then I sent you a blank one for you to start to fill in yourself. Now, what those boxes, we'll talk about that. Okay. And then the expectation of where you need to know exactly where the ideal placement for a particular student at a particular age, at a particular experience level, where's that ideal placement at? So, what was that? Oh, you don't have it. Oh, it's on the back. Yeah, it's on the back. So that's your blank. So yeah, I got it on the back. Thank you so much. I guess I didn't be the one with the arbitrary numbers in it, which makes sense. I was like, I'll save you some paper. It doesn't matter anyways. You fill in your numbers. So these are based on programs that I use. Some of them go by levels A, B, C, D. Some of them go by levels 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I created some of my own levels. So of these different things. Okay. But yes, having the expectation of what's the ideal placement. So you need to consider 3 things. What is the appropriate level for this student? This is a 13-year-old student who's been playing for 5 years. What should they be playing at an average rate? Like if they're just an average student and they've had average teaching, like where would you expect them to be? Or maybe they're a beginner student and they're 65. Where would their skills be? Then you need to figure out what is their current level, and that's what you're going to do in the hour. What's their current level? And then finally, there we go. What would be the ideal level, which is different from the appropriate level. We have an appropriate level, but then the ideal level is what you think about. It's a mental activity that you do to see how you can get this student to do things that they do those inspirational movies about, Like, I was that great teacher, and I had all these students that just benefited. They had to do a movie, and Drew Barrymore played me or something like that. What would be the ideal level that would get that movie scenario, right? Because it's good to stretch your imagination to that point. And each of you have that ability, by the way. Each of you have something very special to offer that would be very, very meaningful to people. So think about that ideal level. Where would that be? Maybe all my students turned out to be musical geniuses. I don't know. Something, just gotta make it up. And then finally, marketing, some things to think about marketing-wise. So maybe have a practice script ready to go. Write it out so you're not fumbling over your words, and you know exactly, and maybe there are people out there that read through these sort of things, and they will give you feedback on, use this word instead of this word. Use that, say it this way. So maybe having a practice script, obviously you're not going to be reading through that script, but the fact that you wrote it down means that you're going to draw from that when you're with the person. Maybe practice with a friend for feedback. Make a videotape of this encounter, and then have someone look it over, maybe a colleague, and be like, hey, I'd like to know how to make this first session much more effective. Goldilocks. I have been in a in an aerobic class. It wasn't aerobic, I can't remember, but it was some exercise class. And every other sentence by the instructor was, I made these videos and you can buy these videos from me. And it was every other sentence. And then, oh, what are you doing? You do yoga. Oh, that's wrong. That's wrong for this reason. And it was way too much and I couldn't stand to go back. So you don't want to be too overbearing, but you also don't want to be aloof. You want to, you need to tell people what you have to offer. And so it's kind of a Goldilocks thing. And again, just as a reminder, you can justify a higher rate of payment doing this. Marketing also includes the ability to be able to look someone straight in the eye and be like, I'm worth this much. And it is okay. So if the student and you are not a good fit, but you still leave a good impression, because maybe they realize it's not a good fit, maybe for different reasons, and they could have nothing to do with you, but they might recommend you to friends and family. So there's a marketing aspect there. You still need to do that. And then you must know your professional identity. What makes learning music with you unique? Have you written a mission statement? What is it that you want your students to come away with when they are done with music lessons with you? What is most important to you? And that's also what makes us wonderfully unique. We're not in competition with each other as much when we consider that. We are attracting the students that are our best fit. Okay, so now we're meeting the students. So what I do paperwork and administrative info first. Get that out of the way. So I cover registration information. I give questionnaires. I've included a questionnaire that I give different level students in this handout. So one is labeled student 1 and one is labeled student 2. Student 2 is a little bit more intermediate advanced, and I ask those questions of my students to kind of get inside their head. And that's more like homework after I've met them, but I still give them these questionnaires. And I want to find out, what are their interests, what kind of music they like, I'm trying to find out who they are. I also give them a theory test at this particular stage, especially if I have a parent and their child is coming in. Parent is doing paperwork, and to the child, I look at the music that they're going to play for me, and I hand them a theory test. And I say, this is what you'll work on. And so for the first 10, 15 minutes, while I'm still nervous meeting these people, they're sitting there filling stuff out. And I am able to calm myself as a result. So, and then additional opportunity to observe the literacy and writing skills of the students. It's not necessary that they have good literacy skills in writing, but it certainly helps when we're playing music because that is a language, right? So, do they meet your criteria for your studio? If a young child comes in and they still cannot read very well at all, then we have a small problem. If they cannot hold a pencil, then we have a small problem. So I'm looking for those little details. Okay. So stage 2 is then the interview and expectations. I sit down, they filled out the paperwork. I have my list of questions that I go through. This is the most important connection at this point. And I sit there and I will tell you what I do. So, okay, I find out what are the students' and parents' expectations. That was when I learned the hard way that with that one student is that I never found out what their expectations were. So I did not meet them. And do they align with their mission statements? Would they be a good fit? Getting to know all about the student. So I'm sitting there with the parent, for example. I've got the parent of the student. I turn to the student and I start talking to them. Hey, I see here that you like basketball. Do you play for a team? And you start talking to them. They're not just, just music lesson fodder. Let's see. So yeah, you want to make a connection. This is the sort of where the dating aspect is. Going over the answers given on the questionnaires, I noticed that right here you were talking about how you learn a song, and you say that you play the piece first. Why do you do that? And try to get it in their head. Going over your policy and expectations. We all know about that as music teachers, right? Check. Okay, I don't need to cover that, but that is covered in depth everywhere else, so I'm not too worried about that. And then finally, marketing strategies. Let them know what you have to offer that is unique and valuable. I will go into my education. I will go into the groups that I play with. And I will talk about all these different associations that I have so they know who I am. They know where they can find me in the community. And also if you're doing anything that's a resume building activity, you drop that too. And you say, by the way, I'm doing this. So right now, I am the local local chapter president of UMTA, and believe me, I mentioned that in these interviews. I won't be able to forever, so I'm saying it now. So say it now. Okay. So stage 3 is when I have them do a demonstration and assessment. So how you assess a student's abilities, you're trying to figure out what are their weaknesses, what are their strengths. And so these 8 areas are where I test them, and I try to do it as fast as possible. I have them play a song for me. If they do not know how to play anything, then I show them something on the piano, and I say, try this. And I see how quickly they pick it up. Then also, if they are transfer students, meaning they've taken lessons or they're self-taught, I have them do technique exercises for me. What skills do you know? Do you know any arpeggios? All that stuff. We need to ask these questions. Sight reading, literacy skills. I need to find out what level they can read. They can sight read at. That's very different from the level they can play at, right? We all know that all too well. And then I do test their ears. I test their rhythm sense. I will ask them questions. What are these numbers at the beginning of the music? What is that? I can't remember what that is. Tell me. What does it mean? And obviously the theory test I've given them already. So hopefully it's completed earlier. And then also I observe their learning style and pacing. Are they tactile learners? Are they visual learners? I'm looking at all those different things. What motivates them? Do they like challenges or do they hate challenges? Do challenges make them want to go in the fetal position? So I'm looking for all that. So here's a list of assessment resources, which I have listed in your handout. But obviously, figuring out what level they're playing at is very helpful. And I'm so grateful for Jean McGrath. Yeah, McGrath. I'm so grateful for her to come out with that, because for so long, people would say, oh, we're at a level 8, or we're at a level 2, and it would never match. So now we do have some sort of definitive guide that people are starting to circle around. But it does start at a certain level. So also method books, if you're teaching at the method book level, you've got your own levels to work out of there too. So theory test resources. Now this is where I'm a little nervous about those QR codes. They might work. I tried the one. It eventually worked an hour later. I don't know why. So anyways, I did put the websites on your handout, so you can move those up. But so AIM is something that we do a lot here. And then Federation, the Royal Schools of, I can't remember ABSRM, it's the Royal Schools of Music. I think I messed that one up. I like to use TCW. I've shown you some pictures of some theory tests. And then finally, there's lots of practice tests found online. Oh, by the way, AIM right there, that takes you to the Youth Conservatory website, and they actually have all these practice tests listed by level. In fact, maybe I can find it for you real fast. So, there it is, right here. So, AIM materials. See, you got all these levels that you can base things on: sight reading, theory, ear training. It's great, Or maybe you decide to go with this other link where the Georgia Music Teachers Association decided to put all of their tests out here. And I went through this, I did this a few years back. Oh, that's the curriculum, sorry. I'm gonna see the sample test. There we go. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Do you have to be a member of AIM to access those practices?
Wonderful question. No, I gave you links that everyone can access.
Right.
So, good question. Yeah, so they're available. Here's an example of a theory test at level 1. Oh. And then level test, sample level test. There's that one. Okay, so a few years back, I went and I found some tests I liked. I downloaded all of them, and I've been using them ever since. It's awesome. So sometimes they get a little shuffled around. I could not find the ones that I use today. I can't find them online anymore. They would take it down. So anyways, but it's good to have this in your wheelhouse. Let's see, so that was, here's this one. This is ABSRM. So download a free PDF test here. So you download it. So, pick the ones that you like the best. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to this because I have big plans for y'all. Ear testing resources, usually attached to theory testing programs. But if you don't wanna use whatever those are, then ear training textbooks. They got lots of examples, you can just test through that. And then sight reading resources, You can use method books. Sometimes method books actually offer sight reading materials, so you can do that. Or progressive compilations, for example, the Keith Snell for piano repertoire, that takes you all the way from level 1 through 10. Or these little books right here, they're not as well known. Improve your sight reading, again, levels 1 through 10. They get actually pretty hard. And I collected all of them. But my personal favorite, especially for a quick assessment, is the Keyboard Gymnastics Sight Reading by TCW, which is 3 cranky women. They do levels A through I, but for some reason I could not find it online. I know that the ladies, they have their materials, but sometimes they sell it through JOS, KJOS. They sell it to them, and sometimes some materials make it and some don't. But those are my favorites. So I actually did bring an example here. If any of you want to see, I have that one here. And this is my special little binder that I test people with. So, okay, so finally, you've tested all these things. Now you are doctor, diagnosis, and recommended treatment, because they want to know this. Sometimes people will come to me for an interview just because I offer a free assessment. And that's all they want. And I'm just like, yeah, you don't have to take lessons from me. I'll give you a free assessment. Let's do it. And then they end up taking lessons from me, which is always pretty great. So the music doctor is in. What is the diagnosis? So what strengths and weaknesses do you observe? Should we or should we not share these observations with them? That's up to you. Sometimes they're curious. Sometimes they want to know. Sometimes they don't want to know. Some other things to consider. You got to think about what materials, what books, what programs are you going to work from to reach the desired goal with this particular student? Do we offer choices? Do they get to choose what books they work out of? Do we prescribe it? Do we do a combination? I'm a fan of the combination, but that's my style. And then does the student seem interested in intensifying their strengths or diminishing their weaknesses? Because sometimes you will get students from both camps. Some students, they don't want to think about doing strengthening their weaknesses. And obviously, it'd be great if we strengthened all our weaknesses, but sometimes they're just not in the right headspace for it. Yes?
I was just going to say, I had an adult student who asked me if I would teach her lessons, and she was working on some repertoire that she found enjoyable, and I tried to help her with some theory and technique exercises, and she just said to me flat out, no, I don't do that. That was confusing to me as a child, and I never understood it, and I just want to learn to play my songs better. And I was like, okay.
I have an older student. I find this happens with adult students, right? They have decided what's good for them. You can't really argue with them. But yeah, I have one gentleman who comes in and he says, I hate this book. And I'm like, okay, I guess we're out of it. But it would help you do X, Y, and Z. But,
Well, what's interesting is she still comes to me. So I guess our relationship is such that I guess I'm giving her what she wants. I mean, I think she could be a better pianist if we worked on some other things, but that's not what she wants. So.
Yeah, adults will surprise you like that. They'll surprise you. And also think about the doctor analogy. Some doctors are sitting there telling their patient, you need to quit smoking, you need to stop eating steaks, you need to do this because you're going to have heart issues. And some patients listen and some patients don't. But they still go to that doctor. They don't resent that the doctor's telling them this, but they appreciate the knowledge that the doctor's giving them, but they will always choose in the end, right? So, okay. So I have an example student. We're gonna very quickly. We might not get through everything. I have this little sheet right here. This is the sheet that I actually used. So sometimes I'll have them play 1 or 2 pieces for me. I'll play maybe just a snippet of the piece. We're going to check through everything. There's the technical exercises. I want you to just kind of fill this out as though you are the interviewer. And then finger independence. Ask yourself, how does the student's fingers move? Are they going to have issues? Coordination. I will have them clap something back to me. Sorry, that's coordination. I don't know why it's labeled coordination. That's one of those things I don't know why. It's rhythm. That's what it is. It's rhythm. And then sometimes I'll check the ears this way, sight reading. So, okay, and at the very, very bottom, levels assessed. I write down what level is the student at. So I want you all to kind of ask yourselves these questions right here. You're going to be doctors. And what time does this end at, Christian? I've lost track.
At 2 o'clock, we'll have the master class, so
Okay.
around.
Okay, awesome. So, okay, I'll try to get us out of here quick. So thank you. Okay, so this is an interview I conducted. We're going to start with the song demonstration. This song demonstration is the Blue Danube. By the way, this student is hilarious because when I talked to her, this is a grandparent of some students I taught. So she was kind of already like, she already had buy-in to come see me. But the way she talks, she's like, start me from square one. I don't know anything. I can't play you anything, because I always tell people in the phone interview, I say, you'll need to come and play something for me. If you've had experience, I want you to come and play something for me. Oh, if you haven't had experience, do you ever like to punk around with piano? Can you bring in like a little melody you can punk for me? Something like that. So she's like, I can't play anything for you. I'm like, great, okay, I understand. All right, well, bring your books in. Just bring your books in that you have. I want to see what you got. She's like, I took lessons clear back when I was a kid, but I don't remember anything. So first great part of the interview was me talking to her, and then eventually I got her doing this. Actually, I think she just got herself doing it. I think she was just scared. So here we are. So this is the piece demo. So she opens it up, and I don't know what to expect. Technical background, what does this song require technique-wise? Like, does it involve scales, arpeggios, chords, all that stuff? I always ask them, how much time did you spend learning this? I couldn't ask this of her because she was not planning on playing for me at all, and this was something she had done many, many years ago, so I couldn't answer that one. But that's very helpful. Did this take them 2 days to learn? Did this take them 2 years to learn? So, very, very helpful. Okay. So take a moment, write that down. We're gonna skip to the next part of the interview. It will be. Oh, this is where I tell her off, by the way.
I was sitting here thinking, she lied to me. She can't play.
She lied to me. She can't play. So she played something, right? So she lied to me. She doesn't need to be started at square one like she led me to believe. Okay. So sight reading. Okay. So sight reading, I'll include the little snippet in the corner. So this would be down here at sight reading at the bottom. The source is TCW, sight reading gymnastics. I gave her a couple levels. So observe note reading, observe the rhythm, observe the fluency, anything else that you can see, fill it in. to scales. All right. What scales can you play with me? Okay, do you know any scales? Oh, what was that? Again, she says, I don't know how, and then she starts doing something. That was amazing. Okay. Let's just pick one. And now I'm testing to see what she can learn. Great job. Okay, what if I ask you to do 2 octaves? Can they do 2 octaves? Yeah, something happened with figuring, right? Okay, so again, write down in your paper. I'm gonna skip ahead to our could use. Actually, you know what? I think I'll skip ahead to. I asked her. I wanted to teach her something new and see how quickly she picked up and what her mode of learning it was. So I asked her if she could play. Well, you'll see. It'll be these chords. These are very common. Right? I was like, have you ever played this? And she's like, no. So this is where I teach her something new. And I do this with every student to see what their learning style is. All right. Have you ever played this little group of chords before? Really? Okay. She's never learned it. Never. That's her answer. You're not in a hurry, by the way, right? So I started telling herself. She picked it up fast. Now that did not require very much explanation, right? Where some students require a little bit more. Okay, finally, let's see, what else do I have in the docket for you? Rhythm check. Okay, I do the same rhythms with everyone. This is what I do. Can they do lunch hold back? Okay, so go ahead and mark in under the formation. Just mark, how did they do? I did 4 examples. She did actually pretty good, but, and most people will do pretty well on this aspect. 90% of the people who come to me, it's very good, and then that 10%, when it falls apart on this one, it's very revealing, and it tells me exactly what I need to do with them. Okay, so I think, is that everything? Okay. Assuming, I just tell her off again. I don't have time to show you me telling her off again. But imagine if I had assumed everything that she told me was true. That would have set us up for a very difficult time in lessons, right? She's like, I can't do any of this. And then I go, okay, well, I'll assume that what you're telling me is right, and then I start her at square one. Do you think she would have stayed with me very long? Probably not. She probably would have been like, this is boring. Maybe she would have been also like humble about it. A lot of people are humble, like, oh, the teacher knows everything. But still, I don't want to be spending lesson time on stuff she already knows. I'm a busy lady, you know? So, okay, so take a moment, let's do a pair share. I'd like you to share with the people around you, what were the strengths, what were the weaknesses, what materials, books would you maybe recommend? And yeah, so go ahead and I'll give you 2 minutes. So you won't all get to talk, but 2 minutes is all you get. Okay, go for it.
Let's go ahead and start with you this time.
Go ahead and start with me.
Yeah, since you kind of ran out of time last time.
So which one do we want to do? Okay, what treatment would I give this example student? Okay, that student, after I've done all of that stuff with that student, I would take that student and I would say, okay, this is what you have, what we need to work on. So that student didn't show any signs of technique. So I would say, okay, we need to build your technique repertoire. And I would say, okay, and another thing, in the beginning, she was really hesitant. I'd say you need to build your note not being hesitant. And where she was good on her chords, I wouldn't worry about that. But if it's a student that didn't know their chords, we would take some chords. Okay, got 1 minute when you guys go.
No problem.
All right. Well, me with the little experience that I have, I would say one thing that I would probably mention to a student. I'd probably talk about confidence, because obviously I felt like there's a little lack of confidence. There's one thing that I noticed. I feel like reassuring them that like what they think of themselves like isn't what the reality is. Because she obviously had a lot more skill than she was making herself believe to be. So by improving that self-confidence that she has, I feel like she would do a lot better.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so again, I wish we had the time to discuss all your marketing answers. I'm very curious to see how all of you would take this student on. This is an example of that same matrix that I wrote up. This is from a couple years ago, and as you can see, I go through and I do anything that's in a good shape, or maybe even actually in higher level than what their overall level is. Like, you know, maybe they're an excellent sight reader, but they're terrible at third theory or something like that, you know? So I do green is good. Green means that they're ahead of their class on there. Red means these are the weaknesses. And then that way, when I go through my week of teaching, I see, oh, I need to focus on this with this and this. Okay? So that's just kind of what helps me. Okay, so, and then you have to ask yourself, are you interested in working with this student and vice versa? I sit there and I say, I think this is a good fit. If you're interested in taking lessons with me, I'd love to work with you. Or I don't think this is a good fit. I think we need to maybe find you a different teacher elsewhere. And it's totally fine. And they get to decide whether they want to work with you. So post-encounter, what do you do if you both decide to proceed with lessons? By the way, just like with dating, it's a good idea to reach out to them. Hey, I had such a great time talking with you and meeting your cute little boy, or whatever, you know. And let me know if you have any questions. Yeah, just like you would on a date. Okay, what do you do with the information? Do you keep student files or notes? Planning curriculum. I like to tell my students in the interview, I individualize the curriculum to you, and that's after I go through this whole process. So I tell them that. It's individualized. I'm not just going to throw you into a factory. That's me. Prepping for their first or next lesson. I know exactly what I'm going to do in that first lesson, and it's going to be incredible. And keep in mind their energy and desire to please you is very, very high in this first bit, so I make sure they eat their veggies, and I make sure that they do all their scales and everything, and that this is normalized, so that way they know that it's going to be this way from here on out, and I've hooked them in with their high energy. And then also I make sure they find some quick successes, things where they feel accomplished within the first month. And I just did this, and I couldn't do it before, So there's that. So keep in mind, tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. Awesome, awesome quote. So if you have any questions, I do have an exit slip that I'm hoping is that QR code. You can try it. I would love to get your feedback, but if not, feel free to email me. I would love to know what worked about today's presentation and what you'd like to know more about. Maybe you're like, oh, I really just wanted to talk about this thing, and we didn't talk about it as much as I wanted to, or whatever. So, yes. So it would be awesome to hear from you, and thank you so much, everybody. It's such an honor to be here. I hope you have a marvelous rest of your day, and we have this marvelous master class ahead of us.